So from that decimals activity, we know that parallel lines are lines that never intersect. They'll never cross each other, all right? And we figured out, what did we find out was true about their slope? Same slope. All right? So, like if I had an equation, let's say y equals 2/3 x plus 4, another linear equation that would be parallel, 2/3 x plus minus pi. I just wrote that because remember, the y-intercept wouldn't matter at all for parallel or perpendicular. Okay? It's all about that slope. That slope. No y-intercept, like Megan Trainor says. Okay? Oh no, I'm going to get flagged for copyright infringement now on YouTube. Okay. Definition of a perpendicular line. Lines that intersect. And there's two ways you could say this. 90 degrees. I'm gonna say at right angles. They intersect at right angles. 90-degree angles, right? Algebraically, we know perpendicular. We got, remember the cool word? Flopposite. Okay. For some of you that don't like that, okay, we can call it the negative reciprocal.
It's the flopposite.
Negative reciprocal sounds like, you know, you're drinking some tea with your pinky out, maybe. Okay?
You would prefer flopposite.
So, let's roll through some perpendicular slope practice here. It says negative reciprocals. Remember, I like to use flopposite. So, flipped and opposite of 3/4 is negative 4/3. Who can give me number 2? Drew, you're up. What would be my flopposite for number 2? This is blowing, so I just can't hear you. We're looking at number 2 right here. Negative 1/2. Number 3, Lily.
Yeah.
What's my perpendicular slope here?
Positive 8/7.
Yeah. Yes, that's great. You don't have to say positive. You just say 8/7. But I'll take positive 8/7. Nathan, number 4.
Negative 1.
Yeah. And number 5, John.
0.
So, this line and this line would be perpendicular?
Oh. No.
So 0 would be this line. What would the slope of the perpendicular line be?
Oh, undefined.
There we go.
Oh.
Yeah, that one's a little tricky, kind of. There's no negative 0, which is what John noticed.
Wait.
But if it has a slope of 0, that's a horizontal line, right? This is 0 fun according to the slope dude.
Yeah.
And the perpendicular line to a 0 slope would be undefined slope. Joe, a big thing when you're working on stuff like this, I think, is to get organized. So like I like to do something like this, like AB. The slope is going to be the change in y over the change in x. And that gives me a slope of 3/4. All right. And then for line CD, the change in y over the change in x gives me a slope of 3/4. So both lines have a slope of 3/4. What do I know is true about the relationship between the lines? Parallel, because they have same slope. Cool. Let's look at number 2. Again, I think organization is important here so you don't lose stuff. The change in y over the change in x gives me a slope of 2/5. For line CD, the change in y over the change in x gives me a slope of negative 5/2. What do we notice about these slopes?
They're opposite.
Flipped and opposite or flopposite, so they are
Perpendicular.
perpendicular. For some reason, this is kind of random. The word perpendicular always reminds me of the kids' book, Banicula.
That's a book.
Yeah, it's about a vampire bunny.
Oh, I've heard of the book.
Yeah. I'm really into those.
Read it.
My kids read a lot. Alright. So, I want you guys to try out 3 and 4 on your own, please. Alright, so number 3. You guys already did this, so I'm going to go a little quicker. I got a 6 minus 8 over 2 plus 1 for a slope of negative 2/3. And for CD, I got a 3 minus 2 over 3 plus 1 for a slope of 1/4. Neither or neither. And for 4, got a 4 minus 3 over negative 1 minus 2 for a slope of negative 1/3. For CD, I've got a 6 minus 3 over negative 4 plus 5 for a slope of 3, which would be perpendicular. The perp. 9, 10, let's just talk about. You can see that the slopes are 7 here, right? So, parallel. You can see here that I've got a 4/5 and a negative 5/4. So perpendicular. I'm not too worried about those. Those are like easier than what we just did. You can just look at them, right? But what do you notice about something like number 12? What form are those in? Well, one's in standard and one's in nothing. So we can't just look at them. How could we make those equations easier to work with? To get the slope. How could we get the slope? John?
Convert them to slope intercept.
Slope intercept. So goal is y equals, right? That's slope intercept. Get y alone. So for this first one on number 12, I'd subtract x from both sides. And we've done this a bunch, right? This is like not a new skill. Divide both sides by 6. And I got y equals negative 1, 6x plus 5. What's nice now is, what's my slope of that line?
Negative 1/6.
Negative 1, 6, I can just look at it. So I go to the second line, I'm solving for y by dividing by 3. And I get a 6x minus 2. So I only need to look at the slope. I've got a negative 1/6 and a 6. So I know that these lines are perpendicular. So it just takes a little work on some of these to get it to where you can just grab the slope. It's not the only way to get slope. Like you guys, I'm going to have you do number 14 right now. You could get intercepts from 14, but you're going to have fractions to deal with, subtraction, addition, so I don't recommend it. But you could. I mean, there is more than one way. But for 14, I suggest solving for y. So that's what you guys got to work on right now on your own. Solve for y and then compare your slopes on number 14. So let's take a look. On number 14, I'm going to get y alone. Subtract by 3x. The negative y is negative 3x plus 2. Divide everything by negative 1. So y is 3x minus 2. The only thing that matters there is my slope of 3, right? My other equation, I'm subtracting 12x from both sides. Negative 4y is negative 12x plus 4. Divide everything by negative 4. And I get y is 3x minus 1. I'm looking at the slopes of 3, which tells me that those lines are parallel. All right. What about number 16? Let's just talk about that one. We don't have to do anything for that one. Let's do it by raise of hands. Who thinks those lines are parallel? Who thinks that those lines are perpendicular? Who thinks neither parallel or perpendicular? All right. So, Joe, let's talk about these lines. Y minus 6, what type of line is that?
That would be horizontal.
Okay, so like somewhere up here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and x minus 1, what kind of line would that be?
Undefined. Okay,
Yeah, baby! Perpendicular, I love that. I love mistakes, guys. Have I ever told you that?
I can tell.
Did you see there was an individual in class that threw out very calmly a wrong answer, and then I shamed them in front of everybody? You guys notice that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. No, did you notice that I appealed to reason? And that person used their reason to then come up with the right answer, which means they had that knowledge. It was just going out on a limb. They were going out on a limb in the moment. That's awesome. That's called learning. That person's going to know this on the homework tonight, right?
Oh, wait, but listen, because you would say a wrong answer.
Yeah. John said Jonathan. Johnny, that's spelled J-O-H. No, it
The
wasn't.
guy who Mr. Mac made up.
Yeah, I made up a
Wrong
guy.
answer.
I made up a guy and then fake shamed him. No, the thing is, I want to point out that when we make those mistakes and then we fix them with reason, that's called learning, and that's beautiful. Do you know what's worse is pretending like you know stuff you don't, because then you just don't know stuff. Okay, guys, we're ready for the homework.